Here's our PV544 that we've now rallied for over 20 years and is up for sale. Let me take you round. Okay, let's just have a quick look at the body, which is all in lovely condition. Okay, what can we tell you about her then? Brilliant car. I mean, just fabulous and great through the fords. Going through deep water is very easy in this car. It's all set up for shaking off deep water. What about night time? So what we've got is the piers mount onto the front wings to get them out of the mud and get them high up, which is worked really well. And there's a stay bar with them as well that locates to there. So that takes about 10 minutes to fit those. Obviously, because they've got the stay bar, then they are generally the right level, immediately fit them, and all you've got to do is adjust the left and right. And at the front end, we have both our sump and steering guards fitted in alloy, and they're proven on the London to Cape Town Rally and many of our Peking to Paris cars that have all been successful. And moving around underneath, front suspension is Yoginder Singh's lovely twin shock conversion. The PV544 suffers from very short front road springs, and therefore you have to control them heavily with good shock absorbers. So there are 4 Bilsteins, gas Bilsteins, controlling the front end. Allied to that is the pair of Amazon 3-pot disc conversion. So we have trailing caliper discs on the car, giving you really good braking, just top end feel and efficiency. The rear brakes have been converted to the Amazon later style with Girling square adjusters, so they're much easier to adjust than the original PV setup where you had to poke a screwdriver through the back plate. These have the Girling adjusters, which is gorgeous. And in the boot we have our own long-range fuel tank, which has a cutout so that you can stow 2 spare wheels in the back here, and a nice easy use filler cap just there, and it's got a fuel sender feeding to a signal adapter and then into the original Volvo fuel gauge. So that's rather elegant. That down here, you reserve tank and main tank are fed through, and that then goes a cunifer pipe through the cabin and into the engine bay. And we have one backup fuel pump there that feeds the reserve and pumps it through to the mechanical pump at the front of the car on the engine. Also, rather than Volvo's original design of a star wheel, which many people break and bend the hinges and distort the boot lid, we have our conversion to hydraulic piston supporting the boot lid, which makes life very easy and you don't have to worry about people breaking it. The reverse light is controlled from the gearbox, so you don't have to worry about all those wretched people, often in Triumph TRs it seems to me, that leave their reverse light switched on when they're on a night section. So that's gearbox operated and is a nice period Lucas WFT 576 off the top of my head. So Yep, that's a nice little bit. And the tow point is labelled there, just in case you ever do get stuck somewhere, which I confess I've sent my driver down wrong slots a couple of times where we've got a little bit stuck. And the back axle is a 4:5:6 ratio and fitted with a Quaife ATB. So very nice for road surfaces, yeah, that's a good ratio, I reckon. That matches the engine nicely. Okay, here we have my engine bay, and there's the mechanical fuel pump down there, which we like. We've always liked the mechanical fuel pump, and we've gone away from fitting only electrics. We have electric backup just in case, but otherwise it's the mechanical. The 5-blade fan gives us superb cooling of the B18 engine. And this is one of my own engines, as usual, with Iskandarian camshaft that is happily revving at 7,000 RPM and tractable from about 2,000 RPM. Idles at 1,200. This is just a gorgeous engine configuration. And the 4-branch manifold down there is Zerkotech ceramic coating on it to try and take the heat away. Plus the carburetors are on 1/2-inch Bakelite to once again endeavour to reduce the temperature around the fuel reservoirs. And of course, as usual, our fairly trademark louvering to once again just dump that heat out of the engine bay and keep those carburetors as cool as possible. We have the remote brake reservoir making maintenance easy. There's a main battery cut-off switch there, which is handy, and the Filter King fuel pressure regulator and filter there. The secret to our good performance in deep water is the air filter setup. The 123 distributor and ignition side of things with a squirt of WD-40 is pretty much impervious to heavy water splash, but the original open pancake air filters always got drowned out by water, so hence we have the pickup coming down from what is hopefully cool air around the right hand wheel arch and drawing in through the panel filter box into the engine. And so, as I say, that's what gives us our good fording performance. It was one of those problems that we worked at very early on in our career, around about 2010 on 12-car rallies, where whatever I did, I always seemed to be fluttering as I came out of deep water fords on the night rally sections, until I realised that it was all to do with the air filters, not ignition at all. So that's the engine, isn't it? Okay, there's not much to be said about the back of the car. There's the rear roll cage, and we like to keep a spare wheel in there just for weight distribution rather than in the boot, and our tools are ratcheted down in the back there. Otherwise, there is simply the first aid bag and the fire extinguisher resides underneath the navigator's knees. The driver's area is pretty much standard. You have an ignition off switch there. The handbrake is a fly-off handbrake and angled at about 15 degrees up rather than being flat on the transmission tunnel. So easy to get at, and of course these cars are superb on the handbrake. There is a GPS speedometer over there, and in the far corner we also have a Monet GPS trip meter. Now, as for the navigators area, so we have quite a nice little bits box between the two front occupants, an adjustable footrest, and then the Brandt's clock and trip meter. We have USB power outlet there, and if you happen to use a Curta, your navigator uses a Curta, then there's a Curta storage just underneath the trip meter. The navigator also has the Wii Avanti map light, and we have plotting lights up the top, which is all LED, which we have found to be the best solution. LED lighting, very discreet, you can't actually even see it, but when it's lit, it's brilliant. And on the driver's side, there is LED lighting on the door for night marshalling, where they're going to put the card on the door, and you just switch on the light there and they get a really good plotting light, so they can be quick and process you through the control nicely. Underneath the dash, just beside the steering wheel, is the harness cutter and window smasher that is now required by regs. Okay, let's see this on the road. Right, let's set off then. So I never like tachos in my cars. I actually rely on the 123 distributor and its programmable rev limiter to tell me when to change gear. As I say, that's at 7,000 RPM, and this car will sit at high revs all day, every day. These engines are so good. Out on the motorway, we tend to cruise at about 62, 65. That keeps the revs just under 4,000, so moderately economic and quite relaxing, to be honest. I'm quite happy gently catching up with the HGVs, and of course the acceleration with 4,000 RPM means you can fly past them without changing gear. The windscreen wiper is actually a modern mechanism. The original wiper motors are very well built, but somewhat prone to failure these days, so I put in a modern wiper system. There's more storage for pencils up here for the navigator, and the washer bottle I kept inside. That's our experience from those winter events, the time we did Land's End to John O'Groats, LEJoG, and of course the annual event of going out on the Rally of the Tests, RAC Rally of the Tests, and very much sub-zero temperatures. Having the water bottle indoors just means you are very rarely going to have a problem of freezing washer fluid. Which reminds me, of course, the heating is just perfect Volvo standard heating. It just pumps out the warmth when you need it. We also have a heated rear screen, which in the early Volvo 2 doors is kind of important because there's very little airflow across the back. So the heated rear screen is distinctly helpful. We've always found the Volvos to really perform best on the rough, the wet, the icy, and then that's where we can take time out of our competition. And that's how we've always set our cars up. So I haven't gone over hard on suspension because I like the traction. I want the car to perform well in those conditions, at the expense of some body roll on dry sealed surface. But to be honest, dry sealed surface is very rare. Also, one of the tricks we first proved was on the London to Cape Town rally, when we deleted the anti-roll bar and found that the car's handling was infinitely superior, having both front wheels completely independent suspension rather than tied together with the anti-roll bar. Okay, well, I think that's the tour around our PV. I'm sure there's bits of it I've forgotten to tell you about, but any questions, please give us a shout and we'll tell you all about a brilliant car, but we just don't have events that we're going to do now, so it's time to pass on.